Olivia Blackwood stood on the dusty streets of Kandahar, Afghanistan, clutching a faded photograph in one hand and her satellite phone in the other. At 32, the former Army intelligence officer still carried herself with military precision, though. The haunted look in her eyes revealed wounds deeper than any physical scar. She had traveled halfway around the world on a mission most would call impossible, to recover her father's Purple Heart medal, lost for decades in what was now Taliban-controlled territory. What began as a personal quest would soon transform into an international incident involving military officials, intelligence operatives, and a network of veterans who refused to leave one of their own behind, even if that meant venturing into the heart of enemy territory. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The scorching Afghan sun beat down on Olivia's shoulders as she adjusted her lightweight tactical vest, careful to maintain the appearance of a humanitarian aid worker rather than a former soldier. 6 years after her honorable discharge from the Army, her training remained ingrained in every movement. The civilian clothes felt strange after years in uniform, but they were necessary for the delicate mission ahead. Kandahar International Airport bustled with activity, a mix of military personnel, aid workers, and local civilians moving with purpose through security checkpoints. Olivia had arrived on a commercial flight from Dubai, her travel documents identifying her as a consultant for an international development organization. It wasn't entirely a lie. She did occasional contract work for NGOs, but her purpose here was deeply personal and potentially dangerous. Inside her bag was a carefully protected folder containing documentation about her father, Captain James Blackwood, who had served as a combat medic during Operation Enduring Freedom in 2003. His Purple Heart, awarded after being severely wounded while treating injured soldiers under enemy fire, had disappeared during a Taliban attack on his forward operating base. Miss Blackwood, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Davidson. Welcome to Afghanistan. Again. The voice came from behind her, steady and professional, with a hint of concern. Olivia turned to face a tall, solidly built man in his early 40s wearing civilian clothes that didn't quite hide his military bearing. Colonel Michael Davidson had been her father's commanding officer and had become a reluctant ally in her quest. Colonel, thank you for meeting me, Olivia said, extending her hand. I know you think this is crazy. Davidson's handshake was firm, his expression grave. It's beyond crazy, Olivia. It's suicidal. Musa Kala is deep in Taliban territory. Even our special forces avoid unnecessary operations there. It's not unnecessary to me, Olivia replied, her voice quiet but resolute. You know what that medal meant to Dad, what it still means. Colonel Davidson sighed, guiding her toward a waiting SUV with tinted windows. Your father was one of the finest men I ever served with. That's the only reason I'm even talking to you right now instead of having you escorted onto the next plane home. As they drove through the congested streets of Kandahar, Olivia studied the city that had changed dramatically since her last deployment. New buildings stood alongside bombed-out structures, the juxtaposition of progress and destruction that characterized so much of Afghanistan. Colonel Davidson maintained a watchful eye on their surroundings, the habits of decades in combat zones, evident in his vigilance. The intelligence reports confirm what I told you over the phone, Davidson said, keeping his voice low despite the privacy of the vehicle. The compound where your father was stationed when he was wounded has been converted into a Taliban stronghold. It's their regional command center, heavily guarded and completely off-limits to Westerners. Getting within 5 miles of it would be challenging. Getting inside would be impossible. Olivia finished his sentence. That's what they said about finding Dad when he went missing after the attack. You found him. Davidson's expression darkened at the memory. That was different. We had resources, authorization, an entire combat team. And now I have you, Olivia said simply. The colonel shook his head. I'm here to talk you out of this, not help you get killed. Your father wouldn't want this. James survived his injuries. He came home. The medal is just a piece of metal. Olivia's hand tightened around the photograph in her pocket. Her father in his hospital bed at Walter Reed, thin and bandaged but alive, his eyes haunted by what he'd experienced. It was never just a piece of metal to him, you know that. The SUV pulled into a secure compound on the outskirts of the city, a nondescript building with subtle but effective security measures. Once inside, Davidson led her to a sparse conference room where maps and satellite images covered one wall. Before we go any further, I need you to understand the current situation, Davidson said, pointing to a detailed map of Helmand province. This region has deteriorated significantly in the past year. The withdrawal of most coalition forces has created a power vacuum that the Taliban has eagerly filled. Musa Qala, where your father's base was located, is now completely under their control. It's a fortress, Olivia. Olivia approached the map, studying the familiar terrain. During her own service, she had specialized in intelligence analysis for this exact region. The layout of the base, has it changed much? Davidson raised an eyebrow. You're not listening to me. This isn't a mission. There's no plan. I'm trying to explain why this can't happen. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. And I'm trying to explain why it has to, Olivia countered, pulling out a worn journal from her bag. Dad's condition is getting worse. The doctors give him maybe a year before the Alzheimer's takes everything. He still asks about his medal every day. Sometimes it's the only thing he remembers clearly. The colonel's professional demeanor softened slightly. I'm sorry about James, truly, but getting yourself killed won't help him. I'm not planning to get killed. I'm planning to succeed. Olivia opened the journal, revealing meticulously gathered intelligence, contacts, and plans. I've spent the last 9 months preparing for this. I have a network of contacts, including former interpreters who still live in the region. I've identified potential entry points and escape routes. What I need from you is current intelligence and possibly some equipment. Davidson leafed through her journal, his expression shifting from dismissal to reluctant respect. You've been thorough, I'll give you that, but it's still a suicide mission. Not if I have help, Olivia pressed. The medal was last seen in the commander's quarters of the FOB, according to my sources. That's now where the Taliban regional commander, Haqqani, keeps his personal quarters and office. If the medal is still there, that's where it would be. Davidson paced the room, professional training warring with personal loyalty. Even if, and that's a massive if, you could somehow get into the compound, how would you find it? It's been almost 20 years. Olivia pulled out another photograph, this one showing her father standing proudly beside a distinctive wooden cabinet. Dad had this custom display case made by a local carpenter, hand-carved with his unit insignia. It's unique, nothing else like it. If it's there, I'll recognize it. And your plan for getting in? Davidson asked, his tone making clear he expected no reasonable answer. There's a humanitarian aid delivery scheduled for villages near Musa Qala next week. I've arranged to be part of the medical team. It gets me into the region legitimately. After that, Olivia hesitated. That's where I was hoping for your input. Davidson ran a hand through his short-cropped hair. This is insane. You know that, right? Even if I wanted to help you, which I don't, I couldn't. I'm here as a military advisor to the Afghan government. My hands are tied by about 15 different regulations and international agreements. I'm not asking you to come with me, Olivia clarified. I'm asking for information, current guard rotations, identification of potential allies in the local population, the kind of intelligence that might keep me alive. A heavy silence filled the room as Davidson studied the determined woman before him. "You're just like your father, you know that?" James never knew when to back down either. Olivia took that as the highest compliment. "Is that a yes?" "It's a, I'll think about it," Davidson corrected. "In the meantime, you're staying at the secure housing facility for international workers. No wandering off, no contacting your local sources, no doing anything stupid until we talk again. Understood?" Olivia nodded, recognizing it was the best she could hope for at this stage. "Thank you, Colonel." As Davidson escorted her to the housing compound, he maintained a professional distance, but just before leaving, he paused. "Your father saved my life that day. Did he tell you that? When he got hit, he was dragging me to safety." Olivia shook her head. "He never talked much about what happened. James had already been wounded once when he came back for me. Took a second bullet pulling me behind cover, never hesitated." Davidson's eyes grew distant with the memory. "That's why they gave him the Purple Heart. Not just for being wounded, but for being wounded while saving others with complete disregard for his own safety." He fixed Olivia with a penetrating stare. "I owe him my life. But I won't help his daughter throw hers away. Get some rest. We'll talk tomorrow." After Davidson left, Olivia settled into her sparse but secure room, spreading her research materials across the small desk. The colonel's reluctance was expected, but she hadn't come this far to be deterred. If official channels wouldn't help, she had other options. Checking to ensure her satellite phone was secure, Olivia dialed a number she had memorized months ago. After several rings, a woman's voice answered, the connection slightly distorted by encryption. "This is Nightingale." "Nightingale, this is Blackbird," Olivia responded with the prearranged code name. "I've reached the nest, but the branch is weak." "Understood, Blackbird. Are you proceeding to Phase 2? "Affirmative, but I need updated coordinates. The terrain has changed." "Stand by for contact from local guide. Calcine Shepherd. Time frame 0800 tomorrow." The line went silent for a moment. "Blackbird, Command wants confirmation. You're aware this operation has no official sanction?" Olivia stared at the photograph of her father, fully aware. "This is personal, not professional." "Acknowledged. Good hunting." The call ended, leaving Olivia alone with her thoughts and plans. The network she had carefully cultivated over the past 9 months was now activating. Former intelligence officers, retired special forces, operators, and local Afghan allies who owed their lives to American soldiers like her father. None of them had official authorization, but all of them understood the importance of recovering a sacred symbol of sacrifice from enemy hands. As night fell over Kandahar, Olivia reviewed her equipment one final time. Specialized lockpicking, tools disguised as medical instruments, a tactical knife concealed in a belt buckle, communications gear that appeared to be standard humanitarian aid equipment, but had been modified for secure transmission. Everything had been carefully selected to maintain her cover while providing the capabilities she would need. Sleep came in fitful bursts, her mind replaying the last conversation with her father before she left. "Where are you going, Livy?" he had asked, one of his increasingly rare moments of clarity illuminating his eyes. "Just a short trip, Dad. I'll be back soon," she had answered, unable to tell him the truth. He had gripped her hand with surprising strength. "My medal. Did I ever tell you about my medal?" "Yes, Dad, many times." It had become a familiar refrain as his disease progressed. "It's lost. I need to find it." His eyes had clouded with distress, the present and past blurring together in his deteriorating mind. "I know, Dad. I'm going to bring it home for you." It was the first time she had revealed even a hint of her plan. For a brief moment, perfect lucidity had returned to his gaze. "No, too dangerous. Promise me you won't." But some promises couldn't be kept. Not when time was running out. Morning arrived with the call to prayer echoing across the city. Olivia prepared methodically, dressing in the conservative clothing appropriate for a Western woman working with a humanitarian organization in Afghanistan. Her hair was covered with a loose scarf, her manner deliberately subdued. At precisely 0800, a text message arrived on her phone. Medical supplies needed at Central Market. Shepard awaits. The Central Market of Kandahar was a chaotic blend of ancient tradition and modern commerce. Vendors called out their wares in Pashto and Dari, the smells of spices and street food filling the air. Olivia navigated the crowded pathways with purpose, her eyes constantly scanning for the contact while maintaining the appearance of a slightly overwhelmed aid worker. The vaccines must be kept cold. You understand this, yes? The voice came from behind her, speaking accented English. Olivia turned to face an older Afghan man with a weathered face and alert eyes. Yes, especially the polio vaccines, she responded with the countersign. The man, Shepard, nodded once. Walk with me. We have medical supplies to discuss. They moved through the market together, their conversation appearing to be about humanitarian aid while they actually exchanged crucial information. Shepard had been an interpreter for coalition forces for over a decade, working alongside soldiers like her father before being evacuated when the situation deteriorated. Your father was a good man, Shepard said quietly as they examined a stall selling fabric. He treated my son when he had appendicitis. The local hospital was 2 days away. Your father saved his life. I didn't know, Olivia admitted. Many things were not told. Many good deeds. Shepard's voice held deep respect. This is why I help now, though it is very dangerous. He discreetly passed her a small package wrapped in cloth. Inside is updated information, security patterns, names of sympathetic locals near the target, best routes. His expression grew grave. Also, confirmation of the item you seek. Olivia's heart jumped. It's there? You're certain? Shepard nodded. My cousin works as a cleaner in the compound. He has seen a carved wooden box with American military symbols in the commander's private quarters. It contains medals and what he calls war trophies. For the first time since beginning this quest, Olivia felt absolute certainty that she was on the right path. Her father's Purple Heart was there, so close it protected by one of the most dangerous fighting forces in the world. The aid convoy leaves tomorrow at dawn, Shepard continued. You are now registered as a medical specialist. Your credentials will pass inspection at checkpoints. He hesitated. But once you reach the forward area, you are on your own. My network cannot help inside the compound. It would mean death for them. I understand, you've done more than enough. As they prepared to part ways, Shepard grasped her arm gently. Your father fought with honor. He respected our people, our customs. Not all soldiers did this. His eyes bored into hers. But this mission, it carries great risk not just for you. If you are captured, it could endanger the entire humanitarian operation in the region. Many innocent people depend on this aid. The weight of responsibility settled heavily on Olivia's shoulders. Her personal quest could have consequences far beyond her own safety. I'll be careful. No one else will be implicated. Shepard released her arm with a nod. There's a saying in my language, the lion who hunts alone must be twice as cautious and 3 times as brave. Hunt well, daughter of James. With that, he disappeared into the crowd, leaving Olivia to make her way back to the secure compound. The package he had given her burned with potential in her pocket, both the key to her mission's success and potentially her death sentence if discovered. Upon returning to her room, Olivia carefully examined the contents of Shepard's package. Inside she found detailed hand-drawn maps of the compound, guard rotation schedules, and photographs taken at considerable risk by his contacts. Most valuable was a small electronic device disguised as a common medical scanner, but actually capable of duplicating electronic keycards used at the compound security gates. As she studied the materials, A knock at her door caused her to quickly conceal everything under innocuous medical documents. Opening the door revealed Colonel Davidson, his expression even more serious than the day before. "We need to talk," he said, entering without waiting for an invitation. "You've made contact with local assets without authorization." Olivia maintained a neutral expression. "I'm not under your command, Colonel. I don't need authorization." "You do when it puts lives at risk." Davidson's voice was tight with controlled anger. "Did you think I wouldn't notice? I have resources here too, Olivia. I know about Shepard. I know about the convoy tomorrow." "Then you know I have a viable plan." Davidson shook his head in frustration. "What I know is that you're being reckless. This isn't just about you anymore. There are dozens of aid workers on that convoy, all of whom would be endangered if the Taliban discovered an American military operative was using their mission as cover." The accusation stung because it contained truth. Olivia had considered the risks to others, but perhaps not thoroughly enough. "I'm not going to compromise the convoy. My operation begins only after we reach the distribution point." "Your operation?" Davidson repeated incredulously. "This isn't an operation. It's a personal vendetta that could get multiple civilians killed." "It's not a vendetta," Olivia insisted. "It's about honoring my father's sacrifice. About bringing home something that matters to him before he loses the ability to even recognize it. Before he loses everything." Davidson's expression softened marginally. "I understand what you're trying to do, Olivia. I really do. Your father deserves that medal and more. But James would be the first person to tell you that no medal is worth risking innocent lives." The truth of his words hit her hard. Her father had always prioritized saving others above all else. It was why he'd earned the Purple Heart in the first place. Would he want her to potentially endanger humanitarian workers just to recover? The symbol of his sacrifice? "What are you going to do?" she asked quietly. "Have me detained, deported?" Davidson sighed heavily. "What I should do is have you on the next plane out of here under military escort." He paused, internal conflict evident in his expression. "But what I'm going to do is offer you an alternative." Olivia looked up in surprise. "I've been making some calls," Davidson continued. "Reaching out to former contacts, people who served with your father, people who owe him. There might be a way to do this that doesn't involve you infiltrating a Taliban stronghold alone with no backup and no extraction plan." Hope flared briefly, but Olivia tamped it down with hard-earned skepticism. "What kind of way?" "A small team. Former Special Forces operators now working private security in the region. Plus intelligence support from people still active, but willing to help unofficially." Davidson fixed her with a stern look. "It would still be unauthorized and off the books. If it goes wrong, we were never here, and no one will come to rescue us. But at least it would be a coordinated effort with people who do this for a living, not a one-woman suicide mission." Olivia studied him carefully. "Why the change of heart?" Davidson was silent for a long moment. "Last night I called your father's doctor at the VA hospital. I wanted to understand his condition, to see if there might be another way to help him find peace." His voice grew quieter. "The doctor told me James has been asking for his medal every day, becoming increasingly agitated when he can't find it. It's one of his last clear memories, receiving that Purple Heart in the hospital, with you and your mother beside him." He pulled out his phone, showing her a photograph she'd never seen before. Her father in his hospital bed at Walter Reed, Davidson beside him, both of them younger, her father gaunt but smiling weakly as he held the Purple Heart in his bandaged hand. "I was there that day," Davidson said. "I saw what it meant to him. Not just the medal itself, but what it represented, that his sacrifice mattered, that the men he saved wouldn't be forgotten." He put the phone away. "If there's even a chance we can bring that back to him before he loses himself completely, maybe it's worth the risk." But we do it smart, we do it as a team, and we make damn sure no civilians get caught in the crossfire. Olivia felt tears threatening but held them back through force of will. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Davidson warned. This could still get us all killed or court-martialed. But at least now the odds are slightly better than zero. He checked his watch. I need to make more calls. Be ready to move at 2,200 hours. And Olivia, cancel your place on that aid convoy. Whatever we do, we're not endangering those people. After Davidson left, Olivia sat in silence, processing this unexpected turn of events. She had come prepared to act alone, to bear sole responsibility for whatever happened. Having allies changed the equation dramatically, offering new possibilities, but also new complications. Her satellite phone buzzed with an incoming message from Nightingale. Status update required. Olivia stared at the device, weighing her options. The network she had assembled independently was still in place, still ready to assist. But Davidson's resources might prove more effective, more professional. The question was whether she could trust him completely or if she needed to maintain her own operations as a backup. After careful consideration, she typed a response. Timeline adjusted. New assets acquired. Proceeding with modified approach. Will update at next window. The pieces were in motion now, too late to turn back. One way or another, she would enter the Taliban stronghold and recover her father's Purple Heart, or die trying. The only question was how many people would be standing beside her when she made the attempt. The midnight meeting took place in a secure location on the outskirts of Kandahar, a nondescript warehouse that had once served as a coalition forces storage facility. Olivia arrived precisely at 2,200 hours to find Colonel Davidson already there, accompanied by 3 men whose bearing immediately identified them as military, despite their civilian clothing. The warehouse interior had been transformed into an impromptu operations center, with maps, communications equipment, and weapons carefully arranged on folding tables. Olivia, meet the team, Davidson said without preamble. Former Master Sergeant Frank Reynolds, Army Rangers. Craig Wilson, ex-Delta Force, and Sam Donnelly, who officially doesn't exist and never worked for any 3-letter agencies you might be thinking of. The men nodded in greeting, their expressions professional but reserved. They were evaluating her, Olivia realized, determining whether this mission was worth the considerable risk they were being asked to undertake. Gentlemen, this is Olivia Blackwood, former Army intelligence with 2 tours in this region. She knows the terrain and the target. This is her operation. We're just the muscle and expertise to help make it happen. Sam Donnelly, a lean man with watchful eyes and prematurely gray hair, spoke first. Colonels filled us in on the basics. Purple Heart belonging to your father, currently in Taliban hands at the Musakawa compound. What he hasn't explained is why we should risk our necks for a piece of metal, sentimental value notwithstanding. Olivia had anticipated this question. Without a word, she pulled out her tablet and played a video. Her father in his room at the VA hospital, his one strong frame diminished by age and illness, his eyes confused as he searched frantically through his bedside drawer. Where is it? I need to find it. James Blackwood's voice was thin but urgent. They gave it to me for a reason. I need to show the boys. What are you looking for, Dad? Olivia's voice came from behind the camera. My heart, the purple one. The general gave it to me after we got hit. Said it was for the men I saved. His voice broke slightly. I promised I'd keep it safe. For them, for the ones who didn't make it home. Olivia stopped the video, meeting the gaze of each man in turn. My father has advanced Alzheimer's. Most days he doesn't recognize me or my mother. But he remembers that medal. He remembers the promise he made to honor the fallen by keeping it safe. In his lucid moments, the knowledge that he failed to protect it causes him more pain than his wounds ever did. Frank Reynolds, the oldest of the three operatives, cleared his throat. My father had Alzheimer's. Hardest thing I ever went through, watching him disappear piece by piece. The medal was taken during a Taliban attack in 2003, Olivia continued. Dad was evacuated with life-threatening injuries. By the time the base was secured, his personal effects had been looted. Intelligence reports confirmed the Purple Heart was taken as a trophy. Sam Donnelly leaned forward. And you're certain it's still there, after all these years? Olivia nodded, pulling out the intelligence materials she had gathered. Multiple sources have confirmed that the current Taliban commander at Musakala keeps a collection of American military items in his quarters. My father's medal, in its distinctive hand-carved case, has been specifically identified by local contacts. Craig Wilson, who had remained silent until now, studied the compound schematics with a professional eye. The security here is substantial. 4 perimeter checkpoints, roving patrols, surveillance equipment that's surprisingly sophisticated. This isn't some backwater outpost. It's a regional headquarters. Which is why I need your help, Olivia acknowledged. My original plan was to infiltrate alone, using the humanitarian mission as cover, but Colonel Davidson convinced me that approach endangered too many civilians. Davidson stepped forward. We've developed an alternative that gives us a fighting chance without risking innocent aid workers. But before we go further, I need to know that everyone in this room understands the stakes. This is completely unauthorized. If captured, the U.S. government will disavow all knowledge of this operation. There will be no rescue, no negotiation, no extraction team. The 3 operatives exchanged glances, a wordless communication born of years working in high-risk environments together. One question, Frank Reynolds said. Who was your father's commanding officer when he was wounded? Colonel James Mitchell, 10th Mountain Division, Olivia replied promptly. Reynolds nodded slowly. Mitchell. I served under him in the early days of the war. Solid commander, cared about his men. He turned to his colleagues. If the colonel vouches for this mission, I'm in. The intelligence looks solid, Sam Donnelly conceded. And I've been looking for an excuse to bloody the Taliban's nose after what happened in Kabul last month. Count me in. Craig Wilson simply nodded his agreement, already turning his attention back to the tactical challenges presented by the compound's defenses. With the team's commitment secured, Davidson unveiled the operation plan. We're going in under cover of a joint Afghan-American security inspection. The regional governor has been persuaded to request an assessment of security measures at several Taliban-controlled facilities, ostensibly to ensure compliance with the withdrawal agreement. The Taliban agreed to this? Olivia asked skeptically. Not exactly, Davidson admitted. They've agreed to allow Afghan security officials to conduct inspections with American advisors, present as observers only. It gives us legitimate access to the outer compound, but not the inner sanctum where the commander's quarters are located. Craig Wilson pointed to the schematics. So we get through the main gate legitimately, then need to break off from the inspection team and penetrate the inner compound without being detected. That's where the real challenge begins. Exactly, Davidson confirmed. Our Afghan security contacts will create a diversion that should draw attention to the opposite side of the compound. During that window, our team will access the commander's quarters, locate the medal, and extract before the alarm is raised. Sam Donnelly studied the timeline. Tight schedule. We're talking minutes, not hours. 20 minutes maximum from diversion to extraction, Davidson agreed. After that, the entire compound will be locked down. Olivia pointed to a section of the schematics. My intelligence indicates the commander's personal items are kept in this room, adjacent to his sleeping quarters. The carved wooden case containing my father's Purple Heart should be visible on display, not hidden. Frank Reynolds looked troubled. What if the commander is present during our infiltration? Intelligence suggests he'll be at a regional leadership meeting during the scheduled inspection, Davidson answered. But we need to be prepared for all contingencies. The next several hours were spent in detailed planning, establishing communications protocols, finalizing equipment needs, reviewing contingency plans for every foreseeable complication. The team worked with the practiced efficiency of experienced operators, each contributing their particular expertise. As dawn approached, they had a workable plan, dangerous and with significant risks, but feasible with the right execution and a measure of luck. Davidson called for a break, sending the team to rest before their final preparations would begin. Olivia stepped outside, breathing in the cool morning air. The enormity of what they were about to attempt settled over her, not just the personal risk, but the potential diplomatic incident if things went wrong. American operators captured conducting an unauthorized mission in Taliban territory could unravel the fragile peace accords and endanger countless lives. Having second thoughts? Davidson's voice came from behind her. Olivia turned to face him. Not about the mission, about involving others. This started as my risk to take, my choice to make. No one in that room is there against their will, Davidson reminded her. They're professionals who understand exactly what they're signing up for. Why are you really helping me, Colonel? Olivia asked the question that had been nagging at her since his unexpected change of heart. This goes far beyond repaying a debt to my father. Davidson was silent for a long moment, his gaze fixed on the distant mountains. When I was evacuated with your father after the attack, I was in pretty bad shape. Lost a lot of blood, in and out of consciousness. But I remember one moment with perfect clarity. We were on the medevac chopper, both of us strapped to gurneys, and James was much worse off than me. The medic was working on him, trying to stabilize him, and your dad kept asking about his personal effects. Davidson's voice grew quieter. At first, I thought he was delirious, worrying about mundane possessions while he was bleeding out. But then I realized he was asking about one specific item, a photograph of you and your mother that he always carried. He was terrified of losing it more than he was afraid of dying. Olivia felt tears threatening, but maintained her composure. The Taliban took that photo along with his medals, Davidson continued. He never got it back. I've always felt I should have done more to help him recover those personal items after we returned to duty. This is my chance to finally make that right. The unexpected revelation gave Olivia a deeper understanding of the bond between her father and this man who had served beside him. It wasn't just about repaying a life debt. It was about honoring the things that matter most to a soldier, not the medals themselves, but what they represent: sacrifice, brotherhood, and the memories of those left behind. Thank you for telling me that, Olivia said softly. Dad never mentioned the photograph. Your father wasn't one to burden others with his pain, Davidson observed. But I saw what losing those personal items did to him. If we can restore even one of them before he left the sentence unfinished, but they both understood the urgency driving their mission. The operation began 36 hours later. The team traveled separately to Helmand Province, converging at a secure location near the provincial capital, before proceeding to Musakala as part of the official inspection delegation. Olivia and Davidson wore the uniforms of State Department security advisors, while Reynolds, Wilson, and Donnelly were dressed as private security contractors accompanying the delegation, a common enough sight in Afghanistan to avoid undue attention. The Afghan security officials leading the inspection had been carefully selected by Davidson's contacts, men who had worked closely with American forces and harbored no love for the Taliban regime. They understood their role was to facilitate access to the compound and create the necessary diversion, without knowing the true purpose of the mission. As their convoy approached the Taliban stronghold, Olivia felt a surge of adrenaline. The compound looked much as it had in the satellite imagery, a sprawling complex of buildings, surrounded by concrete barriers and guard towers, once a forward operating base for American forces. It now flew the white flag of the Taliban from its central tower. Their vehicles were stopped at the outer checkpoint, where armed Taliban fighters conducted a thorough inspection. Olivia kept her expression neutral as her identification was examined, her heart pounding as she wondered if their cover would hold. After tense minutes of scrutiny, the delegation was waved through to the main courtyard. First hurdle cleared. Davidson murmured as they exited the vehicles. "Stay sharp." A Taliban commander named Hekmatullah greeted the delegation with cold formality. He was a tall man with a thick beard and hard eyes that missed nothing. "You will be escorted at all times," he informed them in accented English. "Certain areas remain restricted for security purposes. This inspection is a courtesy extended at the request of the governor. Do not abuse this privilege." The Afghan security chief, Colonel Nazari, responded with equal formality, presenting the official documentation authorizing their presence. As the two men engaged in a carefully choreographed display of reluctant cooperation, Davidson discreetly activated his communication device, confirming to the team that initial access had been secured. The inspection began with a tour of the outer facilities, areas the Taliban were willing to show to demonstrate their adherence to security protocols established in the peace accords. Olivia noted with professional interest how the former American base had been transformed, with Taliban fighters now occupying spaces once filled by coalition forces. As they approached the central building that housed the command center and officers' quarters, Hekmatullah gestured for them to stop. "This area is restricted. Your inspection will continue in the eastern sector." Colonel Nazari protested mildly, citing the agreement that specified a complete facility assessment. As the two men argued, Davidson caught Olivia's eye and gave an almost imperceptible nod. It was time. The diversion came in the form of an apparent security breach at the southern perimeter, a carefully orchestrated incident involving one of their Afghan allies and a small explosive device that caused noise and smoke, but no actual damage. Alarms spread through the compound, with Taliban fighters rushing toward the disturbance. In the ensuing confusion, Olivia, Davidson, and the three operatives broke away from the main group, moving swiftly toward the commander's quarters. Sam Donnelly disabled the surveillance cameras in their path using a sophisticated electronic countermeasure device, while Craig Wilson dealt with the single guard left at the entrance to the restricted area. 15 minutes until they realize. "We're missing from the delegation," Davidson reminded them as they entered the central building. "Move fast but thorough." The interior was a maze of corridors and rooms, but Olivia's intelligence had provided accurate layouts. They moved silently through the building, encountering no resistance as most personnel had responded to the perimeter alarm. "Commander's quarters should be at the end of this hallway," Olivia whispered, consulting the schematic on her specialized phone. "According to intelligence, the personal items are displayed in the antechamber." Frank Reynolds took point, leading them to an ornately carved wooden door that stood in stark contrast to the utilitarian architecture of the rest of the facility. With practiced efficiency, Sam Donnelly bypassed the modern lock that had been added to the traditional door. The antechamber beyond was dimly lit and smelled of incense and cigarette smoke. Olivia's heart raced as she scanned the room, searching for the distinctive wooden case that had contained her father's medals. The walls were adorned with weapons, some traditional Afghan pieces, others clearly taken from foreign forces. Glass display cases contained various items, watches, insignia, badges, all trophies from fallen or conquered enemies. "There," Olivia breathed, spotting the hand-carved wooden box on a shelf behind the commander's desk. The distinctive unit insignia carved into its lid confirmed it was her father's. As she moved toward it, Craig Wilson's voice came urgently. Through their communication system, movement outside. Multiple tangos returning to the building. The diversion ended too quickly, Davidson cursed. Olivia, grab the medal. Everyone else, prepare for exfil. Olivia reached the display case, carefully lifting the wooden box. Inside, nestled in faded velvet, lay her father's Purple Heart alongside his other campaign medals. The sight of them, preserved all these years as war trophies, filled her with a complex mixture of emotions: relief, anger, vindication. "I've got it," she confirmed, securing the medals in her specialized vest. "We've got a problem," Frank Reynolds reported, from his position near the window. "Main courtyard is filling with fighters. Our exit route is compromised." Davidson joined him at the window, assessing the situation with a practiced eye. "They haven't raised a general alarm yet. They're still focusing on the perimeter breach. We can use the northwest corridor to reach the vehicle maintenance area. Sam, can you get us transportation?" "If it has an engine, I can start it," Donnelly confirmed with professional confidence. They moved swiftly back through the building, taking a different route to avoid the returning Taliban fighters. The northwest corridor was clear, leading them to a small door that opened onto the vehicle maintenance yard where several trucks and SUVs were parked. Sam Donnelly quickly identified the most suitable vehicle, a well-maintained Toyota Land Cruiser with a full tank of fuel. Within seconds, he had bypassed the ignition system and started the engine. "Our Afghan allies are still with the main delegation," Davidson noted as they prepared to board the vehicle. "Once we move, the Taliban will know something's wrong. The delegation could be at risk." Olivia hesitated, the weight of responsibility heavy on her shoulders. "We can't endanger them. They're innocent in this," Davidson nodded grimly. "I'll alert Colonel Nazari to extract his men immediately. Reynolds, create another diversion, something big enough to cover both our escape and the delegation's withdrawal." Frank Reynolds grinned, pulling several small devices from his tactical vest. "I thought we might need a plan B. These are remote detonated smoke bombs with lightweight explosive charges. Won't cause casualties, but will create one hell of a distraction. Plant them at the fuel depot," Davidson ordered. "Maximum confusion, minimal damage." As Reynolds moved to set the charges, Olivia contacted their support team outside the compound, updating them on the change in extraction plans. The modified route would take them not to the provincial capital as originally planned, but to a secondary location where a helicopter would be waiting to transport them across the border to safety. Reynolds returned minutes later. "Charges set. Detonation on your command." Davidson contacted Colonel Nazari, warning him to begin withdrawing his men immediately. Then he gave the signal to detonate the diversionary explosives. The effect was immediate and dramatic. A series of explosions rocked the fuel depot, sending plumes of smoke and flame into the air. Alarms sounded throughout the compound as Taliban fighters rushed to respond to what appeared to be a major attack. "Now!" Davidson ordered, and Donnelly accelerated the Land Cruiser toward the secondary gate, which had been left minimally guarded as personnel responded to the emergency. The few guards at the gate barely had time to react before the speeding vehicle crashed through the barrier. Gunfire erupted behind them, bullets pinging off the armored body of the Land Cruiser as they fishtailed onto the dirt road leading away. From the compound, "Anyone hit?" Davidson called out as Donnelly navigated the vehicle at breakneck speed down the rough terrain. A chorus of negatives confirmed they had all made it out unscathed. Olivia clutched the wooden box containing her father's medals, hardly daring to believe they had succeeded. "Taliban vehicles in pursuit," Craig Wilson reported, watching through specialized binoculars. 3 trucks, heavily armed. 2 minutes behind us and closing. "The canyon road is 3 kilometers ahead," Olivia noted, recalling the terrain from her intelligence preparations. "It's narrow. If we reach it first, they'll be forced to follow single file. Easier to manage." Donnelly pushed the Land Cruiser to its limits. the powerful vehicle bouncing over the rough terrain as dust billowed behind them. The canyon road appeared ahead, a narrow track carved into the mountainside that wound through steep terrain toward their extraction point. As they entered the canyon, Reynolds prepared their final surprise, modified road spikes that would puncture the tires of pursuing vehicles without causing catastrophic accidents that might kill their pursuers. This wasn't about taking lives. It was about completing the mission and returning home safely. The spikes worked perfectly, disabling the lead Taliban vehicle and creating a bottleneck that prevented the others from passing. By the time the pursuers had cleared the obstacle, Olivia's team had reached the extraction point where the helicopter waited. The sound of rotor blades cutting through the air was the sweetest sound Olivia had heard in days. As they boarded the helicopter and lifted off, she finally allowed herself to believe they had succeeded. In her hands, she held her father's Purple Heart, a symbol of sacrifice and courage that would soon be returned to the man who had earned it at such great cost. Davidson settled into the seat beside her, his expression a mixture of relief and professional satisfaction. "Your father would be proud," he said, his voice barely audible over the roar of the rotors. "Not just of recovering the medal, but of how you led this mission. You've got his spirit, determined but always mindful of minimizing harm." Olivia nodded, emotion threatening to overwhelm her professional composure. "We did this as a team. I couldn't have done it alone. No one can," Davidson agreed. "That's the lesson your father taught all of us who served with him. Even the bravest soldier needs brothers and sisters in arms." As the helicopter carried them away from Afghanistan toward the border and safety beyond, Olivia opened the wooden box once more, running her fingers gently over her father's Purple Heart. It wasn't just a medal anymore. It was a tangible connection to her father's courage, to the man he had been before illness began stealing him away piece by piece. "We're coming home, Dad," she whispered. "Mission accomplished." The return to American soil occurred with none of the fanfare that typically accompanies military operations. Their helicopter had crossed into a neighboring country where a private jet waited to transport them back to the United States. The operation remained classified, unacknowledged by any official channels. Yet for Olivia, touching down at Andrews Air Force Base felt like a homecoming laden with purpose and meaning. The wooden box containing her father's Purple Heart and other medals rested securely in her carry bag, its weight a constant reminder of what they had accomplished. "The Pentagon will want a full debriefing," Davidson warned as they prepared to disembark. "I've arranged for it to be handled quietly through back channels. As far as official records are concerned, we were conducting a routine security assessment that concluded without incident." Sam Donnelly laughed softly. "That's one way to describe crashing through a Taliban gate in a stolen vehicle with explosions in the background." The team's camaraderie had deepened during their shared ordeal, the kind of bond that forms only through facing danger together. As they prepared to disperse, Olivia felt a need to express her gratitude. "I can never fully thank you for what you risked," she told them. "My father's medal means everything to him, but I know what you put on the line to help recover it." Frank Reynolds shook his head. "No thanks necessary. Some missions just need to be done, regardless of whether they come with official orders or medals of their own." Craig Wilson, the quietest of the group, finally spoke up. "My grandfather was a Vietnam veteran. When he died, someone stole his Bronze Star from the funeral home before the burial. We never got it back." He met Olivia's gaze directly. "What you did for your father, it matters. It matters to all of us who serve." Their goodbyes were brief and professional, but underscored with mutual respect. These men would return to their private security work, carrying the secret of their unauthorized mission into whatever came next. For Olivia, the next step was both simpler and infinitely more complex, returning the Purple Heart to her father. The drive to the VA hospital in Northern Virginia took just over an hour. Olivia had called ahead to speak with her father's doctor, explaining only that she had recovered something important that might help with his increasingly agitated state. She said nothing about where or how she had found the missing medal. "Olivia, welcome back." Dr. Eleanor Pearson greeted her at the entrance to the memory care unit. "Your mother just arrived a few minutes ago. She said you called her as well?" Olivia nodded. "I thought she should be there when I give Dad his medal." Dr. Pearson's eyebrows rose slightly. "You found it? That's remarkable. May I ask where?" "An old army buddy had it," Olivia said, the prepared cover story coming easily. "There was a mix-up when Dad was evacuated after being wounded. It took some tracking down, but it's finally back where it belongs." The doctor studied her face for a moment, perhaps sensing there was more to the story, but professional discretion prevailed. "Your father is having one of his better days. He's been asking for you." The memory care unit was designed to feel homelike rather than institutional, with comfortable furnishings and personal items that helped residents maintain connections to their past. James Blackwood's room reflected his military career, with photographs and mementos carefully arranged to stimulate recognition and memory. Catherine Blackwood rose from her seat beside her husband's chair when Olivia entered. At 65, she remained a striking woman, though the strain of caring for a spouse with Alzheimer's had left its mark in the fine lines around her eyes and the premature silver threading through her dark hair. "Livy," she said softly, embracing her daughter, "you're back safely." The emphasis on safely told Olivia that her mother had guessed more about her mission than she had revealed in their brief phone conversation. Catherine Blackwood had been a military wife for over 30 years. She understood that some deployments couldn't be discussed. "Hi, Mom." Olivia returned the embrace, drawing strength from the familiar scent of her mother's perfume. Then she turned to her father, who was watching them with an expression of mild confusion. "Dad," she said gently, kneeling beside his chair, "it's Olivia. I've brought something back for you." James Blackwood's once commanding presence had been diminished by illness and age. At 72, his broad shoulders had narrowed, his muscular frame becoming thin and fragile. But his eyes, though often clouded with confusion, still held flashes of the intelligence and determination that had defined him. "Livy," he said, uncertainty in his voice, "you were away on a mission." Olivia glanced at her mother in surprise. Her father's grasp of recent events was typically tenuous at best. "He's been saying that for days," Catherine explained quietly, "that you were on a mission. We thought it was the disease mixing up past and present again." Olivia turned back to her father, wondering how much he had somehow understood despite his condition. "Yes, Dad, I was on a mission, a very important one." She reached into her bag and carefully removed the wooden box. "I brought something back for you." James Blackwood's eyes fixed on the carved wooden case, recognition dawning immediately. His hands, spotted with age but still strong, reached for it with unexpected steadiness. "My box," he whispered, "my medals." "Open it, Dad," Olivia encouraged gently. With trembling fingers, James lifted the lid. Inside, nestled against faded velvet, lay his Purple Heart alongside his campaign medals, exactly as they had been displayed in the Taliban commander's quarters. For a moment, he simply stared at them, his breathing becoming ragged with emotion. "You found them," he said, his voice stronger now, more like the father Olivia remembered from before the disease began eroding his identity. "How? Where?" Olivia exchanged glances with her mother, unsure how much to explain given her father's condition. But Catherine nodded slightly, encouraging her to continue. "They were in Afghanistan, Dad, at the base where you were wounded. I went and got them back." James Blackwood looked up sharply, sudden clarity in his gaze. "You went back there? To Musa Kala? That's Taliban territory now, dangerous." The precision of his recollection startled Olivia. Dr. Pearson had explained that long-term memories often remained intact even as recent ones faded. But his awareness of current geopolitical realities suggested a level of lucidity she hadn't expected. I had help, Dad. Good people who respected what you did, what that medal represents. Her father carefully lifted the Purple Heart from its velvet nest, holding it in his palm and staring at it with intense concentration, as though willing it to speak to him. They gave me this after I pulled Davidson and Martinez out. Martinez didn't make it back to the chopper. Too much blood loss. His voice cracked slightly. I promised him I'd keep it safe. For him, for all of them. Catherine moved closer, placing her hand on her husband's shoulder. You did keep it safe, James. It was taken from you when you were wounded. That wasn't your fault. But James shook his head stubbornly. My responsibility, my failure. He looked up at Olivia, his eyes suddenly bright with unshed tears. But you fixed it. You brought it home. We brought it home, Dad, Olivia corrected gently. A team, just like you taught me, the mission is always about the team, not the individual. A ghost of a smile touched her father's lips. You remembered. I remember everything you taught me, Olivia assured him, fighting back tears of her own. For the next hour, something remarkable happened. James Blackwood became more present, more coherent than he had been in months. With the Purple Heart in his hands, he spoke about his service with a clarity that astonished even Dr. Pearson, who had quietly returned to observe this unexpected development. He recounted details of the ambush that had left him wounded, of the men he had treated under fire, of the extraordinary efforts of the medevac team that had saved his life. Some stories Olivia had heard before, but others were new insights into her father's experiences that he had kept private until now. Davidson was hit bad, James recalled, his fingers tracing the edge of the Purple Heart. Femoral bleed. I had to use my belt as a tourniquet while dragging him behind the Humvee. Taliban fire coming from 3 directions. Martinez was providing cover, but then he took a round through the neck. I couldn't save him. Catherine squeezed his shoulder gently. You saved so many others, James. Davidson is alive today because of you. James nodded slowly. Good man, Davidson. He came to see me in the hospital, brought me this. He held up the Purple Heart. Said the general wanted me to have it right away. Didn't want to wait for the formal ceremony. A faint smile touched his lips. Never did like ceremonies much. Olivia found herself memorizing every word, every expression, aware that this window of clarity might close as suddenly as it had opened. The disease was relentless in its progression, but for this moment at least, her father was fully present, reconnected to his identity through the tangible symbol of his sacrifice and courage. Dr. Pearson pulled Olivia aside as James continued, reminiscing with Catherine. This is quite remarkable, she said quietly. We sometimes see temporary improvements when patients reconnect with significant emotional anchors from their past, but the degree of coherence your father is showing is unusual. Will it last? Olivia asked, though she already suspected the answer. The doctor's expression was compassionate, but honest. No, the disease process hasn't changed. But these moments of connection are incredibly valuable, both for him and for your family. They're opportunities to strengthen emotional bonds that persist even when cognitive function declines. Olivia nodded, accepting the reality while committing to treasure the gift they had been given. We'll make the most of it. There's something else, Dr. Pearson added. We've been documenting cases where strong emotional experiences seem to create new memory pathways, even in patients with significant cognitive impairment. It's possible that the return of his medal, something so deeply meaningful to him, might create a lasting emotional memory, even if the details eventually fade. The implication gave Olivia hope, not that her father would recover, but that some essence of this moment might remain with him even as the disease progressed. It made everything they had risked to recover the medal worthwhile. When she returned to her father's side, he looked up at her with an expression she had feared she might never see again: recognition, pride, and complete awareness of who she was. "You're so much like I was," he said softly, "determined, stubborn when it matters. Your mother always said you got the best and worst of me." Catherine laughed gently. "I said you got his courage and his hard-headedness. Both served him well as a soldier." "Served you well too, from the sound of it," James added, studying his daughter with newfound appreciation. "Afghanistan, Taliban territory. Must have been quite an operation." "It was," Olivia acknowledged, deciding that her father deserved as much of the truth as she could safely share. Colonel Davidson helped. He assembled a team. "We went in under diplomatic cover, but had to improvise when things got complicated." A flash of the old military commander appeared in James Blackwood's expression. Davidson was always good in a crisis. Kept his head when everything went sideways. He hesitated, then asked with surprising insight, "Official mission or off the books?" Olivia smiled. "Let's just say it won't be appearing in any official reports." Her father nodded slowly, understanding the implications. "Those are sometimes the most important missions, the ones history never records." He carefully replaced the Purple Heart in its case, his fingers lingering on the medal. "Thank you, Livy, not just for bringing it back, but for understanding why it mattered. I always understood, Dad." As evening approached, Dr. Pearson reluctantly suggested that James needed to rest. The extended period of clarity and emotional engagement, while beneficial, had also been taxing for him. Olivia and Catherine prepared to leave, promising to return the following day. As they gathered their things, James called Olivia back to his side. "The photograph," he said urgently. "Was it there too? With the medals?" Olivia frowned in confusion, then remembered Davidson's story about the family photograph her father had carried during his deployment. Once settled, James sat in contemplative silence, watching the sunlight play across the gentle waves. "I used to come down here at dawn," he said eventually, his voice stronger than it had been in months, "before everyone was awake, just to watch the mist rise off the water as the sun came up. Most peaceful moments of my life." Catherine squeezed his hand. "I know. I used to watch you from the bedroom window. You looked so content." James turned to her with a smile of surprising clarity. "You knew about that? I thought you were still sleeping." "I didn't want to intrude on your private time," she admitted. "But I loved seeing you there, so at peace." As the sun began its slow descent toward the horizon, casting golden light across the water, Thomas approached with a proposal. "If you're feeling up to it, Captain Blackwood, I thought you might enjoy going out on the lake. Just a short trip along the shoreline. We have a pontoon boat that's very stable and can accommodate your wheelchair." Dr. Pearson considered the suggestion carefully. "How is your energy level, James? Would you like to go out on the water?" James's response was immediate and emphatic. "Yes, I want to be on the lake." The logistics were managed with careful attention to James's comfort and safety. The pontoon boat's flat deck easily accommodated his wheelchair, which was secured with straps for stability. Catherine sat beside him, while Olivia, Davidson, and Dr. Pearson found places on the cushioned seats. Thomas Brennan took the helm, his wife remaining on shore to prepare a light dinner for their return. As the boat glided slowly away from the dock, James's expression transformed. The tension that had marked his features even during the day's positive interactions melted away, replaced by a serene joy that Olivia had not witnessed in years. He lifted his face to the breeze coming across the water, closing his eyes momentarily as if absorbing the sensation through every pore. "Smell that air," he said softly. "Nothing else like it in the world." Thomas navigated with practiced ease, keeping close to the shoreline but providing changing views of the forested coast and rocky outcroppings. He pointed out landmarks, a pair of nesting eagles in a tall pine, a natural rock formation that resembled a sleeping bear, a small island where blueberries grew wild in summer. James nodded at each feature as if greeting old friends. The eagles were there when we owned the place too, he noted. Same nest, maybe even the same birds. They can live for decades, you know. As they rounded a point, a small cove came into view, sheltered by rocky cliffs on three sides, with a tiny pebble beach at its center. James straightened in his wheelchair. Walleye Cove, he said with certainty. Best fishing spot on the lake. Thomas looked at him with respect. You know your spots, Captain. The locals still call it that, and it's still known for walleye. Some things don't change. Used to anchor right there, James pointed. First light or dusk, never came home empty-handed. Without being asked, Thomas guided the boat into the cove, cutting the engine so they drifted in the protected waters. The silence was profound, no human sounds intruded, only the gentle lapping of water against the boat's hull and the distant call of a loon. This is where I always felt most at home, James said, his voice barely above a whisper. Not in any house we ever owned, right here on this water. Davidson, who had been quietly observing his old friend's transformation, spoke up. You talked about this place during the worst nights in Afghanistan. Described it so clearly, I feel. Like I've been here before, James nodded. Thinking about this lake kept me sane in the desert. When the heat and dust and danger felt overwhelming, I'd close my eyes and imagine being right here. He gestured to the cove around them. Cool water, green trees, safety. As the boat drifted peacefully, Olivia noticed her father reaching into his pocket, his movements deliberate. He withdrew the Purple Heart, which he had insisted on bringing with him from the VI facility. In the golden light of approaching sunset, the metal gleamed with a warm luster. I earned this in a place of death, James said quietly, holding the medal in his palm. But its meaning lives in places like this, places worth protecting, worth fighting for. He looked up at Olivia. That's what I never could explain properly. The medal reminds me of terrible things, yes, but also why those sacrifices matter. For this, for peace, for home. The profound wisdom in his words, the clarity of his understanding despite the disease that had clouded so much of his mind, brought tears to Olivia's eyes. She had risked everything to recover the physical symbol, but her father had just articulated its deeper significance, a meaning that transcended the medal itself. As the sun touched the horizon, Thomas reluctantly suggested they should return to shore before darkness fell. James nodded his agreement, taking one last long look at the cove as they turned back toward the dock. The evening that followed held a magical quality. Dinner on the deck as stars appeared overhead. Conversation that flowed naturally between reminiscence and present observations. The Brennans shared their own stories of the lake, creating a sense of continuity between past and present stewards of this special place. When it came time to leave, James surprised everyone by asking to speak privately with Thomas and Lavra. The others stepped inside, giving them space for whatever he wished to communicate. Later, as they prepared for the journey back to Virginia, Thomas approached Olivia with a small package wrapped in tissue paper. Your father asked me to give you this, he said, and to thank you for bringing him home one last time. Those were his exact words. Puzzled, Olivia unwrapped the package to find a small, weathered photo frame containing a faded photograph, her mother and herself as a young child, standing on the beach of the lake house, laughing as waves lapped at their feet. The exact image her father had carried in Afghanistan, the one that had been taken along with his medals during the Taliban attack. How is this possible? She whispered, staring at the photograph she had believed lost forever. It was hidden in the back of the fishing cabinet, Thomas explained. When your father opened the special tackle drawer, he found it tucked behind some old lures. He said it was the photograph he carried with him overseas, the one he thought was lost. The discovery felt like a miracle, the final piece restored alongside the Purple Heart. Both treasures returned to their rightful guardian against seemingly impossible odds. He wanted you to have it, Thomas continued. He said, "You'd understand why." Olivia nodded, too overcome with emotion to speak. The photograph represented everything her father had fought for, had been wounded for: family, love, moments of perfect happiness preserved against the ravages of time and circumstance. Just as she had understood the importance of recovering his Purple Heart, she now understood why he wanted her to keep this image that had sustained him through war. The journey back to Virginia the following day was peaceful, James drifting in and out of sleep, but showing none of the agitation that often characterized his response to changing environments. When awake, he frequently touched his pocket where the Purple Heart rested, as if reassuring himself of its presence. Occasionally he would smile at some private memory, his expression serene in a way Olivia had not witnessed since before his diagnosis. Dr. Pearson, monitoring him throughout the trip, expressed cautious optimism about the visit's impact. "I can't promise long-term improvements," she warned gently. "The disease process continues. But this kind of positive emotional experience creates new neural pathways that sometimes remain accessible even as others deteriorate. He may retain emotional memories of this visit even when specific details fade." 1 week after their return, Olivia visited her father at the VA facility, bringing fresh flowers for his room. She found him sitting by the window, the wooden case containing his Purple Heart open beside him. On the windowsill stood the photograph from the lake house, carefully positioned where sunlight illuminated it through most of the day. "Dad," she greeted him, setting the flowers on his bedside table. "How are you feeling today?" James looked up, his expression brightening with recognition. "Livy, good to see you." He gestured to the chair beside him. "Been thinking about our trip." The clarity in his voice, the specificity of his reference, sent a surge of hope through Olivia. "You remember the lake house?" "Of course," he replied, as if the question were absurd. "Water like glass at dawn, eagles nesting in the tall pine. The fishing cabinet with all my old gear." He touched the Purple Heart gently. "Found my photograph there too. The one I carried overseas." "Yes, you did," Olivia confirmed, marveling at the precision of his recollection. "That was quite a discovery." James nodded thoughtfully. "Some things find their way home eventually, like my medal. Like my memories." He looked at her directly, his gaze sharp with momentary clarity. "Thank you for not giving up on either." "I never could," Olivia said simply. "They're both too important." James smiled, turning to look out the window again. "Davidson told me, about Afghanistan. About what you did to bring my medal home." Surprised, Olivia glanced toward the door, wondering when Davidson had visited and what exactly he had revealed about their unauthorized mission. "Don't worry," James continued, a hint of his old commanding officer authority in his voice. "Some operations remain classified, even from official records." He tapped his temple. "But not from here. I know what it took, what you risked. A father knows these things." The acknowledgement of her mission, coming from the man who had inspired it, filled Olivia with a complex mixture of emotions: pride, relief, and profound gratitude that he understood, even if only in this moment of lucidity that might soon fade. "It was worth it," she said softly. "Every moment." James reached for her hand, his grip surprisingly strong. "2 missions accomplished," he said with satisfaction. "The medal returned to its rightful place. And me returned to the lake, even if just for a day." His eyes grew distant, but not with confusion, with peaceful reminiscence. "I can close my eyes now and be there anytime I want. Nobody can take that away, not even this disease." As if to demonstrate, he closed his eyes, a gentle smile playing across his features. I can see it all. Feel the breeze. Hear the loons calling across the water. He opened his eyes again, meeting Olivia's gaze. That's what you really brought back for me, not just the medal, but home. In that moment, Olivia understood that her missions, both the dangerous recovery of the Purple Heart and the healing journey to the lake house, had succeeded beyond her highest hopes. The medal now rested where it belonged, a tangible symbol of her father's courage and sacrifice. But more importantly, she had helped restore his connection to the memories that defined him, that brought him peace. The Purple Heart had been lost in a Taliban stronghold, and against all odds, she had brought it home. But the greater victory was this moment of connection with her father, this bridge across the ravages of illness and time. Some battles were fought with weapons and tactics, others with love and determination. Both required courage. Both yielded victories worth every sacrifice made to achieve them. As the afternoon sunlight illuminated her father's peaceful face, Olivia realized that the true legacy of his Purple Heart wasn't the medal itself, but the spirit it represented. Courage in the face of overwhelming odds, sacrifice for something greater than oneself, and the unbreakable bonds that brought lost treasures home, no matter how impossible the journey might seem. 2 missions accomplished, she agreed, squeezing his hand gently, and both worth fighting for. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.